Hello everyone and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The morning after what was supposed to be the best day of Hope Logan's life, the Forster home still smelled slightly of wilted gardenias and champagne that had gone flat hours earlier. White chairs sat in irregular rows on the patio, like if troops had lost their resolve to stand at attention. A solitary veil, once spotless, lay half-submerged in the koi pond, its lace borders turning the color of aged bone. Nobody had bothered to fish it out. Nobody had the heart. Inside the living room, Hope sat on the edge of the sofa in the same ivory silk gown she'd worn when she was supposed to say, "I do." The hem was torn where she'd stumbled down the aisle trying to escape the reality that had detonated in front of 300 people. She hadn't sobbed in hours, even though her mascara had dried in black rivers down her cheeks. She was no longer in tears. She was in a numb, perilous place where everything felt simultaneously terribly loud and absolutely silent. Liam stood across the room, arms clenched so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. He had not changed out of his tuxedo, either. The bow tie hung loosely, like a noose that had failed its purpose. He kept opening and closing his mouth, as if he knew whatever he said would just exacerbate the catastrophe. Steffi stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, eyes flashing with something resembling pride and sadness. She had been the one who played the recording. In the middle of the vase, she stood up and pressed play on her phone, allowing Hope's breathless voice to fill the garden. "Thomas, yes, right there, don't stop." Followed by the unmistakable rustle of sheets and the low, hungry groan of a man who had once promised Hope forever and then taken everything. Brooke was sedated and located upstairs. Ridge had brought her there himself when she slumped in a pool of Chanel and misery. Eric sat quietly in his armchair, hands folded over the head of his cane, reflecting on every day of his 99 years and more. The rest of the visitors had left hours ago, whispering, filming, and texting. The video had become widely distributed by this point. The hashtag Hope for the Worst was trending internationally. The front door opened with no knock. Every head turned. Thomas Forster went across the threshold like a man returning to a house he has burned down just to watch it smolder. He dressed in all black, as he always did when he wanted the world to know he was deadly again. His hair was longer and curled at the collar. There was a new scar through his left brow that hadn't existed when he left for Paris 9 months ago. His eyes, those piercing, angry Forster eyes, went right to Hope. The room held its breath. Hope rose slowly, the tattered robe murmuring around her ankles. "You're supposed to be in Europe," she explained. Her voice cracked on the final syllable. "I was," Thomas answered. His tone was calm, almost soothing, as it had been just before he unraveled entirely. "Then I watched a webcast of my younger sister wrecking your wedding. I thought I should come see the damage in person." Steffi lifted her chin. "You're not welcome here, Thomas." He didn't look at her. "I wasn't talking to you, Steffi." Liam finally found his voice. "You have no right." Thomas interrupted him with an icy stare that could have frozen the Pacific. "I've got every right, Liam. More than you realize." Hope took one unintentional step forward, then another, until she got close enough to notice the small trembling in Thomas's jaw, the sole indication that he wasn't as in control as he wanted everyone to believe. "You left," she muttered. "You departed without saying anything. It's been 9 months, Thomas. Not a text. Not a call. Nothing. I had reasons." "Reasons?" Her chuckle was sharp and unpleasant. "You disappeared the morning after we—" She paused, cheeks blazing, mindful of every ear in the room. "The morning after." Thomas's eyes fell to her stomach. The room became colder than Steffi's look. Hope's hands moved reflexively to conceal the barely noticeable swell beneath the silk. For months, she had only begun to show in the last several weeks. She had planned to inform Liam over their honeymoon. She'd planned a lot of things. Liam's gaze tracked the movement. Something shattered behind them, something that will never be repaired. "Hope," he murmured hoarsely. "Tell me it's not true." She couldn't. Thomas took another step inside. The door clicked shut behind him, sounding like a gunshot. "Whose is it, Hope?" Liam asked, his voice breaking. "Just say it. Say it's mine, and we'll make it through this. We always do." Hope gazed at him, the man she'd adored since she was a child playing dress-up in her mother's wardrobe. The guy who had chosen her, left her, chosen her again, and left her again, like a song trapped on the same cruel refrain. For the first time in her life, she felt nothing. Not love. It's not hate. Simply bone-deep tiredness. "I don't know," she replied. The words hung in the air, like smoke. Liam stumbled back a step. "Don't you know?" Thomas's mouth bent, but it wasn't a smile. "She doesn't know because there's a very good chance it's mine." Steffi made a wounded animal sound. "That is not feasible. You were gone. She was with Liam." "Was she?" Thomas looked to his sister, his eyes gleaming. "Steph, when did you decide to blow up her wedding? Was it before or after you discovered Hope might be carrying a Forrester heir other than Liam's?" Steffi snapped. "This isn't about heirs. This is about how she cheated on my brother with you. Again." "Actually," Thomas replied softly, "it's about the fact that Hope visited me the night before I went for Paris." She cried. Liam had picked Sally once more, in a spectacular gesture at the bikini bar, remember? "Hope arrived at my door at 2 a.m., soaking from the rain, and begged me to make her feel wanted. Only for one night. Just so she could remember how it felt not to be someone's second choice." Hope closed her eyes. She could still taste the rain on his lips and feel the way he'd raised her against the wall as if she weighed nothing, as if she were something delicate, breakable, and all his. "I told her no," Thomas explained, his voice firm. "At first, because I was striving to improve. But she kissed me, so I stopped trying. We did not sleep. Not even for 1 minute. And after it was finished, she told me she was returning to Liam, that there had been an error. She said she loved him. So I left. I went before she could see me break all over again." Liam shook his head repeatedly, as if the words might cease to make sense if he did so quickly. "No. No. We remained together after that." "Hope, tell him we were together," Hope said quietly. 1 week later. And again the next week. Then she looked at Thomas. I didn't let myself think it could be," Thomas concluded. "Mine." The hush that followed was like that of a bomb, when the dust is still settling and no one knows who's dead yet. Eric cleared his throat. "Perhaps," he added softly, "this is a conversation best had in private." "No," Hope responded. Her voice changed to steel. "No more secrets. No more hiding. Everyone in this room has spent years deceiving, manipulating, and forgiving things that should never be forgotten. I'm finished." She turned to face Liam. "I love you. I always have. But I've spent my entire life trying to be the good girl who makes the right decisions and waits for the man who is unable to make up his mind. And I am tired, Liam. I'm exhausted." She then turned to Thomas. "And you. You don't get to stroll back in here like a dark avenging angel, claiming rights to a child who may not even be yours. You left. You chose to leave." "I left," Thomas said, "because I loved you enough to give you the life you kept claiming you desired. The safest one. The one with the white picket fence and the man who will never be as obsessed with you as I am. But you aren't happy, Hope. You never were. Not much." Hope's fingers wrapped protectively around her stomach once more. The baby kicked with a little, urgent flutter, as if it knew its parents were fighting. "I want a paternity test," Liam stated abruptly. "Today. Now." "There's no today test that's accurate this early," Steffi exclaimed. "You know that." "Then, as soon as there is one," he replied. He glanced at Hope with something resembling loathing. "I need to know if the child you are going to let me raise is my brother's." Thomas shuddered at the word brother, but did not correct him. Hope felt the room tilt. She groped blindly for the back of the sofa to keep herself stable. Thomas was there in a moment, hand on her elbow, steadying her in the same way he usually did when no one else saw her fall. "Don't touch her," Liam snapped. "She's carrying my child," Thomas stated slowly, almost reverently. Maybe. And even if she isn't, she remains the only woman I've ever loved. So yes, Liam, I am going to touch her. I am going to take care of her. Because you never really did. Liam charged. Ridge appeared out of nowhere, grabbing his kid by the waist, and pulled him back before fists could be raised. Enough, he roared. This is not how the Forresters behave. Really? Thomas laughed bitterly. Because last time I checked, this is exactly how Forresters behave. We love too strongly, we destroy everything we touch, and then we stand in the ashes pretending to be the victims. Hope backed away from him. She approached the French doors and looked out over the devastated garden. Somewhere out there, among the strewn rose petals and smashed champagne glasses, she was meant to have become Mrs. Liam Spencer for the third time. I'm keeping the baby, she explained to the glass, regardless of who the father is. And, if necessary, I'll raise it alone. I'm done letting the two of you decide my future, because you can't decide what you want. She spun around to face them. Liam was openly crying now. Thomas looked like he had been cut from stone. I need time, she explained. Both of you, keep away from me till the test results are out. I mean it. She strode past them, head held high, the tattered train of her bridal gown falling behind her like surrender and victory all at once. At the bottom of the steps, she hesitated, hand on the banister. And Thomas. She spoke without looking back. He was at her side in 2 steps. Yes, if it's yours, her voice trembled. We're going to have a lot to talk about. And then she was gone. Hope locked the door upstairs, in the room that had once belonged to her when she was a little child dreaming of fairy tales, sank down to the floor, and finally let herself cry. Downstairs, the 2 men who had spent years fighting over her stood on opposite sides of the room, staring at the empty hole she had left behind. Neither one of them moved. Neither of them knew what would happen next. And out in the distance, a baby with Forrester blood and Logan fire awaited birth into a conflict that had just recently begun. Fans had been anticipating Liam and Hope's wedding for months, expecting a gloriously serene ceremony that would finally allow both characters to find the stability they had long desired. However, in keeping with the continuing narrative of family rivalry, long-buried secrets, and emotional upheaval that defines their world, the day turned chaotic with an unexpected arrival. The reappearance of Thomas sent shockwaves through the event, shattering the delicate peace Hope had attempted to create for herself. What should have been a joyful time quickly devolved into bewilderment, rage, and worry about what his unexpected presence might mean, especially now that rumors of a pregnancy and the increasingly unpleasant question of who the baby's father might be circulate. Prior to the dramatic twist at the ceremony, the days preceding up to it appeared almost too peaceful for a couple with such a turbulent history as Liam and Hope. They had battled to overcome betrayals, misgivings, and interruptions dating back to their early years. Both had publicly sworn to prioritize trust and honesty as they rebuilt their lives together, and despite their own residual insecurities, they decided to be optimistic. This wedding was meant to end a painful chapter and begin a new one marked by devotion. However, soap opera relationships are rarely linear, especially when unresolved emotional threads continue to tug at Hope's heart, whether she admits it or not. That fragile optimism was destroyed as Hope came down the aisle. The throng gasped as Thomas emerged at the door, his expression opaque, his presence emanating an immense tension that seized every guest. Hope paused for a single second, not because she was shocked, but because she knew this day was coming. Thomas had unexpectedly left months before, claiming that he needed space to sift through his volatile emotions and break his obsessive behaviors. His disappearance was startling, but possibly essential. What Hope never imagined was that he would return at this exact moment, as if he were being guided by an invisible power to call off the wedding. The groom reacted immediately. Liam looked to Thomas, disbelieving and furious. He had never completely trusted Thomas, even when he tried to show that he had changed. The rivalry between the 2 men was fostered not only by their opposing personalities, but also by the undeniable fact that Thomas's affections for Hope never fully faded. Liam had long been troubled by the idea of Thomas reappearing and disrupting their future, and now it seems that hunch had come true. As Thomas went forward, the entire situation devolved into emotional turmoil. Hope's internal strife became painfully clear. Despite her commitment to Liam, she suffered with Thomas's unexpected departure. She had attempted to compartmentalize her residual emotions, sympathy, bewilderment, and perhaps even affection, but seeing him again unsettled her in ways she hadn't anticipated. Despite the upheaval he had created in her life, he remained someone with whom she had shared strong emotional experiences, particularly those involving Douglas and the convoluted pseudo-family dynamic they had developed. His surprising reappearance reopened the doors she had sought to seal. The silence was broken when Thomas declared that he was not there to make trouble, but rather to inform Hope something she needed to know before marrying. His calm demeanor just increased the anxiety. Liam requested that he go, stating that whatever Thomas had to say could wait until after the ceremony. But Hope, divided between duty and curiosity, persisted in hearing him out. What Thomas disclosed next challenged every assumption she had developed over the previous 3 months. He admitted that during his absence, he had been dealing not just with his personal struggle, but also with a secret he had planned to keep hidden. His absence had not been purely for self-reflection. Instead, he had been coping with the fallout from a night he and Hope shared, one he claimed Hope might not completely recall due to the extremely draining conditions they were both under at the time. Hope was caught off guard by the discovery. She remembered fragments, moments of vulnerability, tears, and a silent embrace, but she dismissed the recollection, believing it was only emotional tiredness. Thomas, on the other hand, claimed that the night had been authentic, important, and far more intimate than Hope had allowed herself to admit. The crowd reacted immediately, with whispers filling the air. Liam was furious, accusing Thomas of manufacturing the story to ruin the wedding. Hope couldn't ignore the anxious flutter in her tummy. She had recently found she was pregnant, and while she assumed Liam was the father, she had kept the revelation a secret until after the ceremony. The timing now seemed like a horrible twist of fate. Thomas's claim revealed a potential she wasn't prepared to face. If he was telling the truth, all she knew about the baby may be incorrect. The remainder of the wedding descended into mayhem. Liam walked out, refusing to stand in the same room as Thomas. Guests dispersed in disorganized groupings. Hope found herself emotionally immobilized, desperate for answers, but scared of what they could disclose. Thomas followed her outside, attempting to reassure her that he had not returned to give her anguish, but rather because he believed she had the right to know the truth before committing herself to Liam. The earnestness in his voice just exacerbated her distress. In the days following the wreck ceremony, Hope was torn between two worlds, the life she had been constructing with Liam and the unresolved emotional link she felt with Thomas. Liam, outraged and hurt, requested that she end her relationship with Thomas permanently. He questioned her memory of the night Thomas claimed they spent together, implying manipulation on Thomas's behalf. Hope wanted to believe him and cling to the clarity he provided. Nonetheless, doubt gnawed at her. She couldn't shake the faint but persistent memories of that night, the warmth of Thomas's presence, the way he had held her as she sobbed, the solace she had sought in a time of weakness. Thomas refused to back down. He explained that he had spent months convincing himself that staying away was better, but when he found out she was pregnant, he felt forced to return. Although he did not accuse her of willfully concealing anything, he stated that he felt she was dismissing the idea because admitting it might jeopardize her relationship with Liam. His insistence may have been motivated by real concern, but it only added to Hope's sense of pressure. Brooke chimed in with strong ideas of her own. She had always distrusted Thomas and considered his comeback as just manipulation. She pushed Hope to block him out totally in order to secure her future with Liam and avoid another round of heartbreak. But Hope, overwhelmed by the conflicting opinions and emotions around her, struggled to make clear decisions. Her sense of self, her independence, goals, and responsibilities felt hazy. The baby's paternity became a pressing issue. Hope knew she could take a test and that modern science had answers, but the prospect of knowing worried her. As long as she didn't confirm anything, she could hold on to the hope that Liam was the father. She feared that discovering the truth would destroy not just her friendship with him, but also the small peace she had managed to restore since Thomas's departure. Meanwhile, Thomas tried to demonstrate Hope that he did not aim to influence or force her to make a decision. He tried to set limits, giving her space but assuring her that he was available whenever she needed to chat. His attempts at maturity and moderation contrasted sharply with his previous actions, further confusing Hope. She saw a version of Thomas she hadn't really recognized before, vulnerable, stable, and genuinely sorry for the devastation he had caused in the past. Liam, on the other hand, saw Thomas's restraint as a strategic move. He suspected Thomas was using emotional manipulation to seduce Hope into doubting her own memories and sowing uncertainty at the exact moment she was most susceptible. His protectiveness turned into envy and bitterness, and despite his efforts not to lash out at Hope, the pressure became increasingly apparent. They argued constantly, with each furious exchange eroding their relationship. Hope began to feel alone, unsure whether she could trust Liam, Thomas, or her own memories.